Hey guys, PIEGUYRULZ here, and I am with The Rise and Fall of Nickelodeon,
What's up?
and we are here to talk about some decently sized news that you broke.
What a surreal moment, first of all, to be on this channel. Because just first off, like first and foremost, I've been a fan of Pie Guy Rules for years, and he was one of the reasons I wanted to, start my whole spiel of TRAFON, Rise and Fall of Nickelodeon. So, you know, all the good work you've done, sir. Thank you very much for having me on.
Oh, well, thank you very much, and thank you for covering this sort of stuff. I would not have any clue about half the stuff that goes on in the in behind the scenes in animation if it weren't for you.
I try very hard to not only cover the news but just make sure that it's like trustworthy and that you can trust me as a source. And it seems to definitely be paying off now.
So basically, a few days ago, Cyma was fired.
Mm, I think she more left than was fired,
Mm-hmm.
but there was writing on the wall, like a lot of people that she had employed were leaving and being replaced, and regime being built up, and I think Cyma was losing most in her life control, and it just seemed like Nickelodeon, or at least Viacom as a whole, were going in a more newer direction with Nickelodeon because, well, as I've covered, the ratings for Nickelodeon are like at an all time low.
Mm-hmm.
Now that can be, you can say that like cable's down everywhere, and it is, but for Nickelodeon, like the decline in ratings like have bad like the past like 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
Like SpongeBob was still getting over 2 million, and Loud House was getting close to 2 million. The live action was still doing good. Just all that was, and suddenly it just tanked. Like SpongeBob is getting like series lows and
Wow.
series lows. The Kids Choice Awards got a series. Well, can't really call it a series, but record lows this year. Kids Choice Awards are usually the highest rated thing that they have, and this year it'll probably still be one of the higher rated things, but like very steep decline, like by Nickelodeon standards. Like
Mm-hmm.
they hold themselves to a standard where premieres get like 2-3 million views, and most shows are even getting like 1.5 million views right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I guess Cyma is leaving fence anymore. Like the ratings are down, everything's down, and I guess she's
People are
just like,
leaving. People,
yeah,
Butch Hartman left. He was not fired, as far as I know. He 100%
yeah.
left. Dan
Dan
Schneider,
got fired. Yeah, he
yes,
got fired.
he got let go. He parted
Yeah.
ways. So those are
No,
two.
got kicked too.
Yep,
That was
yep.
a little bit before, but it probably didn't help.
So lots of changes going on at Nickelodeon, and in the midst of this, Cyma may have stepped down, may have been fired. But she parts ways with the network, and this was
The official word is that she's stepping down. Whether kicked from her pedestal or leaving with quote unquote grace is up for debate.
and of course this in and of itself is pretty big news, but this sort of thing happens, and people everyone kind of knew that at some point she was going to step down. um but what really kind of shocked me and a lot of other people is the news specifically that you broke, from a creator of a pilot for Nickelodeon whose pilot did not get picked up,
Mhm.
but like weird circumstances led Nickelodeon to kind of have claim over this pilot and treat this creator like dirt. And he
Literal
messaged
garbage.
and he messaged you, I believe.
Well, I'll give you the whole story here.
Sure.
Simon's whole spiel was sort of getting exposed before this by C.H. Greenblatt,
Mm-hmm.
aka Carl Greenblatt, who did Harvey Beaks, and the whole debacle behind how nobody knew that show was canceled except when Nickelodeon tweeted it. And he basically went on a huge rant on Tumblr and said, you know what, screw this. Like he didn't care what bridges he was burning. It was his baby he was working on for years and years, and it had been like drug around the network, like given such terrible treatment. I think they only aired it like 10 times in the span of a year on the main network.
Yeah.
And he just said, you know what, that's it. I'm blowing the lid off this. They only care about SpongeBob, and Cyma only cares about getting cheap shit and cutting corners. And and he was a respected person in the industry, so it's like not many people could say that he was lying. Um, he
Hmm.
was like the first person in the industry to speak his mind about like Cyma Zargami and like all the bullshit that seemed kind of obvious from people. Like, SpongeBob's the only thing that's been made in the past like decade that's stuck. So many things have been canceled. All these cheap live action shows. All this like mediocrity within the past decade, and Nickelodeon's just been getting worse and worse and worse.
And he deleted that too.
Yeah,
I did a video on this if you want to check out a little bit more, but he deleted it, which
yeah.
speaks that not only um it was something he probably shouldn't have said, not because it wasn't true, but because there is this just unfortunate mist of blacklisting in the industry. Unfortunately,
Unfortunately for him, screen caps exist, and everything he said was already out there. I'm going to have to meekly raise my hand and say I'm the one who told Cartoon Brew about it, and they credited me as the source.
hmm
So I was just trying to spread the word, and I said, well, who the hell can I tell? Cartoon Brew, they haven't reported it yet. Hey, do you guys know about this? Cartoon Brew is what they are. People still looked at them as a reliable news source, so I said sure, and it broke. And Greenblatt actually posted on Tumblr like, God damn it, Cartoon Brew. So I felt a little bad about it. I didn't want to get him in trouble. I was just trying to get it out there that it was like, because to me it wasn't about like getting like followers or anything. It was vindication.
Here's the thing. The industry in general, not just animation, not just television, but film, television, the whole gambit of media, it has this really disgusting secrecy. Every industry has secrets, of course. You can't run your business by giving
Yeah.
away everything. But the way that this sort of stuff is run, where you blacklist creators and people who don't fall in line with the terrible business practices, and where stuff just cannot come out, you'll notice that there is markedly very little behind the scenes about SpongeBob that is publicly revealed. There was the one documentary, and there's some stuff on DVDs.
Very rarely.
For a show as big as it is, you'll notice that not many people actually talk about making the show. And I mean, I think there's a few reasons for that, but Nickelodeon and the industry in general is very secretive, and this is how this stuff propagates. It's only when someone like C.H. Greenblatt steps forward, even if he, oops, didn't mean to or meant to take it down, ultimately it might suck for him, and it's unfortunate if it has a career effect on him. This stuff needs to come out. It can't go on.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of why he did it. Like, I think he kind of knew that at this point, like, shit was just hitting too much of a fan.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I don't know, like after the Greenblatt stuff came out, um, Cyma kind of went into a hole. You didn't hear much about her. You didn't hear much from her. Kind of went on damage control. They started, I think they had by that point announced the Hey Arnold movie revival, but then they announced the Invader Zim one, which, just to let everybody know if they don't remember, Greenblatt revealed that the Invader Zim movie was happening on Tumblr too. And literally Jahonen had to go on Twitter and say that it was fake, and then like a month later it was real. They had to wait, I guess, for Nickelodeon to officially announce it. But like Carl, like, because like somebody asked him like, you think Invader Zim will ever come back? And he was like, oh, actually, well, Johannon's been working on that movie for like a year and a half, and everybody was like, what? Excuse me, Carl, you just destroyed an entire fandom in like 2 seconds. But yeah, like that was announced, and the Rocco movie was announced, and they started I guess and like Loud House started getting more popular, and things started getting bigger and more, you could say, like popular for Nickelodeon. And time in what felt like a long time, there seemed to be a bit more of a new direction. And maybe at this point, Cyma was already getting ready to step down.
Mm.
At this point, maybe the new regime was already taking over and Cyma was just being used as a figurehead. I don't know. I could never predict that. I can never like say that's exactly what was happening. Retrospect, like that kind of blew the lid on, like, it kind of blew the whistle on what I had been saying for about 4 years to that point, and what so many others have been saying. Was Argami's ruining Nickelodeon, or the
Mm.
network doesn't care anymore, and then people would be like, "Oh, you're overreacting. Oh, you don't care anymore." Or, "Oh, it's like, oh, well, you grew out of liking Nickelodeon. You grew out of it. This and that. Yada yada yada."
Here's the thing. On that, I do think that there is a lot that we don't know as I don't know, spectators or whatever, as people, analysts.
We don't know as fans. Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right. There's always going to be industry secrets and industry things and stuff that we will never know. All we can do is do our best to guess. So I'm 100% always open to other opinions on if they think that Nickelodeon or whoever isn't doing
Yeah.
these shady things, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a very, very high likelihood.
I'm basically getting that with the Cartoon Network situations right now. It's like, oh well, maybe they're doing this. Like, we could never know like their plan and this and that. But it's like, with all this mixed stuff coming out, it's hard to trust like anybody at this point. Like, I'm not
Mhm.
saying that anybody could be as bad as Cyma. With all this shit, she sounds like the goddamn devil incarnate.
Mm.
This is why you can't trust like certain decisions. And when something questionable happens, it's like, you can't exactly just go with the flow. You have to be wary, and you have to have you have to consider all options and not just
Mhm.
trust what they're doing, because some of the things they're doing are pretty damn shady.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we're not, guys, we're not talking about like, oh, they canceled a show I liked, or oh, they gave more spots to SpongeBob on the network. No, this is
This
like
is worse.
people's lives ruined, careers
Yeah, this is
destroyed.
people's livelihood. Like, they're greenlit or not, they were literally punished, like punished for years and years. Like literal years wasted. I'm sure people got paid, but like in retrospect, like if you read the statements, paid a lot less than they should have been. I'll just get to the point here that
Mm.
like the green black stuff came out, months went by, and now we're in current day. Stuff happened. Nickelodeon seemed to be turning a corner, and then the ratings just bombed out because while Nickelodeon seems to be wanting to turn a corner, they're still in that sort of realm of mediocrity where SpongeBob and like maybe Loud House, because Loud House is doing good at ratings, but then there'll be shows like Bunsen is a Beast, which just died and went to Nicktoons,
Mhm.
or Welcome
Mhm.
to the Wayne, which has never aired.
Aw.
There's still the same problems that persisted in the Cyma era that persisted years and years ago.
This is what's going to be rough, because when you run a network like this, when you greenlight shows, basically you need to plant seeds ahead of time. Very, 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 very few shows are hits from season one. Very few. Some of them are successful and popular, but not huge hits. And so you need to plant those seeds years in advance. Just because they're willing to change now, just because, hey, the Loud House took off, that doesn't mean that the network's going to be in a great place, because they weren't planting seeds. They were, hey, let's do another Butch Hartman show. Hey, let's give Dan Schneider 2 more shows. Let's continue
Yeah,
chasing internet trends instead of actually planting successful shows 2, 3, 4 years ago that could have been huge successes now.
how it is too is that Nickelodeon, like, they don't let shows grow.
Yeah.
They do the opposite. It's either you are as good as SpongeBob or you're dead. The Loud House got extremely lucky that people were suddenly interested in the show. It had an interesting like dynamic of like 12 different characters, and people were interested. Released the episodes early online, and people watched them and they liked them and they tuned in and they kept tuning in, and the show just took off. It took off so hard that they were ready to make a movie out of it and everything, and they still might be, as far as I know. But
Yeah, maybe that'll come out when the Adventure Time movie comes out.
They went all in because they literally hadn't had an animated hit in about a decade or more.
Hmm.
So they could like stay and last. There were some animated shows that lasted a couple seasons, like I don't know, Sanjay and Craig, Pin.
Penguins of Madagascar was surprisingly a long-running series.
The DreamWorks spin-offs lasted a while. Just surprisingly, TMNT lasted a while.
Mm,
Korra, despite the way it was treated at the end, lasted a while. But
true.
like, there was like no show that really like the next like this or this is going to have a fandom that lasts like years beyond after it's canceled or
Hmm.
just like that show that you remember or you're like you look at it and you're like, oh, I'm gonna remember this show. They didn't have that for years and years, and Loud House looked to be, and it's like, oh, maybe they'll start giving more shows another chance. And it was like, no, Welcome to the Wayne hasn't aired in months. Bunsen is a Beast died like almost immediately, despite the fact that it was getting like 1.5 million views. They stopped airing it. That is the messed up mentality that this woman literally like a show that would be like the top ranked show on Cartoon Network got pulled from their network.
All right, so let's get into the smoking gun here.
So what happened was, I have eyes and ears everywhere, whether I have knowledge of it or not. I have a lot of fans who are friends with a lot of people, and one of my fans who has been like a longtime fan, some podcasts with him on a series called Old School Lane, which is another person who's been around like maybe as long as you have
mm,
doing stuff, and say his name Zach. He sent me a message right as this news was breaking. Like it was very new. I had just tweeted it myself, and he said, "You're gonna want to take a look at this. This is from the creator of Constant Pain, which was a Nickelodeon pilot that was pitched in like 2000,
mm-hmm.
and it was his name was Michael Wright." The more disgusted I felt, like a pit in my stomach was growing. Like I'm like, oh my god, like the second she was able, like the second she turned her back, they were waiting.
Hmm.
Years and years and years, they were probably waiting to just spit absolute fire at this woman.
For record here, I have an article from 2001 in the LA Weekly talking about so Micah, one of his big things was that he was a part of the Writers Guild, and he was always trying to push animation to be more of a part of the Writers Guild and to have more fair pay. And basically, this article here has him in it, and basically, Nickelodeon filed an unfair labor practice charge with the National Labor Relations Board, alleging that Micah Wright was coercing writers into signing their cards. And you have like Invader Zim writer and a few other writers who signed. But basically, my point in just bringing this up is just that this gentleman had a bone to pick with Nickelodeon for a very long time, and was mistreated from way back, going back, and he still wants to tell this story, which tells you that it's a very
Very, very deep cut.
yeah.
Not only did he bust the lid on Cyma and the terrible shit she did, he went into detail. I got this linked to me by somebody, another person
Mhm,
on Twitter who I guess had a conversation with him.
mhm,
His struggle to make his show on Nickelodeon,
yeah.
goddamn like road of hell. I
Mhm,
would never have wanted to go through what this man has gone through. First off, like his show was going to be greenlit, and then 9/11 happened,
yeah.
and the network got scared. He said Cyma's actual, like an actual quote from Cyma, was that action shows turn kids into terrorists. Actual quote on it's on. I'm sure you have all the stuff screen capped. It
Hmm.
says it in like his maybe his first
Let's
thing I
see.
screen capped.
Yep, it's like the second line.
Um, and not only did that happen, but I guess they were able to hold on to the rights of his show,
Mhm.
which is something they started doing more and more as they went on. Because I guess because they lost Adventure Time and that became a goddamn cash cow. after that, he was basically stuck. They had his show, they had his right, they had the rights to it, and I guess because he fought so hard to get back at them, they blacklisted him and like several creators from their
Mm-hmm.
network, several creators, writers, animators, people who were pissed at them and wanted more pay or more rights or just wanted their shows back.
They blacklisted them, period, not just from
Mhm.
Nickelodeon. Like they called,
Yeah,
according to this, they called other animation houses.
he lied about like why they wanted them blacklisted, like just to get them blacklisted.
And there's not like, I mean, today there's a bit more, but there's not that many animation houses out there. It's a small-ish industry. You can very easily just call a few places and then boom, that person never gets hired again.
I think that would be bad enough, but then he would go on to say like Cyma is the reason that like 8 executives got fired.
Mm-hmm.
Or wanted to take the blame for anything that went wrong. If something went wrong and you were below Cyma, it was literally like that episode of Fairly Odd Parents where it's like the guy running the show and
Mm-hmm.
all the other people are like are sitting at desks around him, and if he doesn't like what you said, he presses a button and they fall into a void and 2 more take his place. Literally the exact same scenario with Cyma,
Mm-hmm.
where if something happened and she didn't like it, they were gone and replaced with new people. Like Russell Hicks wasn't very well liked at the end
Mm-hmm.
for some of the shit he was greenlighting,
He's the
but
previous
even he
president,
got fed to
right?
yeah, Russell Hicks. He was the head of
Head of
like
programming.
development. Like, and I think Chris Viscardi took his place after he was fired. Basically, he was even fired. Like, he was one of like her right hand like men.
Her cronies.
Again, like the more and more people got fired, it kind of unironically hurt Cyma because the people she'd known for years, she kind of got rid of them, and these new people, like I guess maybe weren't as compliant.
Mm-hmm.
It just turned into this whole like hodgepodge of I'm not like it's not my fault. It's children who are wrong. You know, it's
In one of the upfronts, I think 2 years ago, they mentioned like, oh hey, viewership's down like 30%, but it's the streaming. It's because of this whole streaming thing, and it's like
not.
if you put more of your shows up on streaming services, you might still see a fall in actual like viewership on television, but you could still recoup some of that. But no. It's the streaming. Streaming is evil. Eh,
Even Cartoon Network's doing that. I
yeah.
mean, they have their app like for how good or bad it might be. I don't know. That's the one thing about them. I don't know the numbers online.
Mm.
If it's offsetting their record low ratings they're getting every week at this point. Odeon, it's just like not only do they not have like any streaming, they have like their ratings are dying. It's like
Yeah.
now nobody's watching you anywhere, like legally.
And of course, the things that I have up on screen right now, these are written by Micah, and you've spoken about some of the interesting things here, but some of the other interesting things are that basically, everything that we, like myself, you,
Mhm.
a lot of other people in the animation community and the people that have just spectated this whole thing, were just 100% right about pretty much everything. Nickelodeon legitimately had this like where is it, this demand that if a show was not as successful as SpongeBob from the get-go, it was not worth their time. Like that he says that.
Yeah. Not only were we correct, I've been getting messages from people who worked at Nickelodeon just saying that, hey, on that stuff you shared about Cyma, it's 100% right. Keep up the good work. Like I'm just like, wow.
Mhm.
Like it like dumbfounds me almost that it's like other people like just other people like who have sent me info who have worked at Nick. Like I won't tell like some people are like because I've said it's anonymous and like people are like well if it's anonymous how do we know it's true and I'm just like you just have to trust me on this because they're people who like don't work at the company anymore but they're not sure if it's still in effect or if they'll still get in trouble and I want to honor that and I also want to have like trust with these people if they're sharing information like this with me.
Mhm.
So it's like it's not like I'm lying to you guys. I'm not saying like this is a lie. You just have to believe me. Like if I've earned your trust at this point, like stuff I've shared with you.
Mhm.
starting to come to me, and like they're starting to realize that, hey, this guy, for whatever reason, people are listening to him. So like it's just crazy. It's very crazy to think that I've gotten to this point to like be able to not only share this, but for it to go that you see it and so many other big people in the community see it. Like people who I know, like I'm friends with like a lot of people in the community, but what really shocked me was when like Rebel Taxi retweeted it, and I was like, wow.
Oh yeah, here, let me just scroll down real quick. Oh yeah, that's like 2.1 thousand likes on this, 949
Mm-hmm.
retweets.
Yeah.
So okay, so like the SpongeBob thing was correct. The
Mhm.
Dan Schneider. Okay, so this is like an interesting thing is that I mean I guess Micah wouldn't know. Why would he know? But I mean
Dan
it's
Schneider stuff is very it's like I think everybody kind of knew he was an egotistical like son of a bitch because like that's kind of the main reason he was fired.
yeah.
But the elephant in the room, as you could say, is that Dan Schneider liked, little girls or liked underage people and sexually harassed them for years. This,
Allegedly.
however, allegedly, nobody has come forward. I'm not saying he did it either.
Yeah, I'm not trying to defend him. I'm just always devil's advocate.
Large rumor that so a lot of people, even in the industry, have like, and now it seems to have assisted in his firing.
Yeah, I mean from what Micah says is that he was fired because of rumors of it, which could totally mean he did it, could totally mean not, but um I mean definitely seems like yeah, if this guy, if there's even like a chance that this guy was doing anything like that in the
Yeah.
climate, the social climate that we're at right now, that would be such a huge bomb for Nickelodeon. That as much money as Dan
Especially after
Hmm, Chris.
Savino got fired for the sexual allegations
Hmm.
that he basically got released for was a huge blow. And then like almost like a month later, Dan gets fired, and then these rumors swirl up, and it's like it's not good for him. And then the John Kay stuff happened, and John
Yeah.
Kay is associated with Nickelodeon whether they like it or not.
Ugh,
That
that
really
guy.
hurt. That really hurt them, especially because when it happened, he was at Nickelodeon, so it
Mm.
hurt them. It hurt them very badly. All these things, I think, have contributed to Nickelodeon's like losing their ratings because they're
Oh
losing
yeah.
trust, they're losing
Absolutely.
reputation. This is like it didn't all happen under Cyma's watch. Like the John Kay stuff happened in the '90s. The Savino stuff seemed to have happened over his whole career.
But you do also get the feeling that if Cyma and just any of the higher ups at Nickelodeon held a tighter ship, this stuff could have been caught sooner. I'm not saying that they share the blame for what an individual does that's inappropriate, but
Mhm.
it just kind of adds to this picture that Nickelodeon is just really run by a bunch of incompetent idiots. Like, um,
Like that's kind of the thing. Like Micah also says in his posts that he does not envy who has to take this over and try to right this ship
mm-hmm.
because that's kind of like it really feels like Cyma wasn't fired. She saw the fires and she left off the ship with her money.
Yeah.
Like she feels like Nickelodeon is a cause that she basically beat as dead as she could, and she earned her money, and now she's leaving to do I don't know what.
But that's the thing. I mean, I knew it. I
But
knew it that
yeah,
the way they milked SpongeBob with just ordering more and more episodes and doing more of these TV movies and these specials and all that stuff, it screams short-term returns. That's
yeah.
what it screams. And a lot of the other decisions they do.
There's going to be a third SpongeBob movie. I don't know if you know that,
Oh
but
yes.
there will be.
Oh
Yeah,
yes. It'll be a wonderful sponge or whatever that subtitle is.
yeah.
But yeah, and then of course, I mean, I wanna not skimp over just like the big thing is I'll read just a little bit of this here. During Simon's regime, the methodology of paying show creators also quietly changed. Creators used to get 2% of adjusted gross of toys, bed sheets, plush animals, etc. based on their shows. That meant that Nickelodeon could deduct the cost of the toy manufacturer and shipping to the stores and nothing else. Then, perhaps upset about having to pay millions of dollars to Hillenberg, oh boo-hoo, your billion-dollar franchise has to give a few million to the creator. Um, That was my ad-libbing.
Especially now when you realize like the state Hillenberg is going to be in.
Yeah.
Even before that, it was scummy, but now in retrospect, it's really scummy.
Yeah, and I mean the dude stayed on in some sort of advisory position, so it wasn't like he was like doing nothing all these years and just reaping the money. Um, but anyway, Cyma's Nickelodeon quietly changed their creator deals to adjusted net of toy revenue, meaning they could deduct the cost of anything they wanted from the earnings of the creators. Cyma mentioned your show during dinner for six at the French Laundry. That's $3,000 deducted from your creator payments. They've also held online for what they pay artists and creators on a per episode basis. From what I hear, it's not unusual for a show creator to work 60 to 80-hour weeks for less money per week than they could have earned 15 years ago, even as the cost of living has dramatically gone up. And why? All to disguise the falling ratings. Yeah. So that's basically it. I mean, if you cheat your talent out of money and you keep more of that money, you make it look like the show is more profitable than it is.
It's so bad.
It's scummy, and then of course there's the unionizing thing of just how Nickelodeon fought to keep these unions away. And I mean, I don't know, the writers guilds and unions are complicated things, but if people want to sign up for a union and there's this push, and it seems like there's nothing really regulating this sort of stuff, and Nickelodeon could pay whatever they felt like paying.
Micah himself stated that that the live action shows actually had more of a union,
Yep.
strong like basis of like protection.
And of course, thanks to wonderful Nickelodeon for holding back animation, for saying that animation is not worth as much as producing a live action show.
Because like a lot of live action shows, like even if they were bad, they got like 2 to 3 seasons or more. Because they were one cheaper and because I guess they had stronger unions to work with.
Yeah, because there was already an established base for that.
Like Dan Schneider shows, like he just kept crapping them out and they kept greenlighting them.
Yep.
Yeah, like he had Henry Danger, he had Game Shakers, and then he made the Kid Danger series. Like he had 3 shows going on at once when he was released,
Yep.
which really hurts.
Yep. Oh yeah, Sam and Cat did gangbusters despite it being complete garbage.
My one source said that people in the talent department actually left because they'd cast Victoria Justice as the lead over Ariana Grande. Be the bigger star, and lo and behold, she was.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's not even a slight to Victoria Justice. Like seems pretty cool. Yeah, and they also apparently tried to hire Drake, and they failed.
But they already had Drake. He was with Josh.
Yeah. Yes, he was.
Um, sorry. So yeah, according to your source,
Yeah.
some of the other things, that she hated Nick Splat.
Nick Splat was one, like I really ranted about like Nick Splat at the beginning. Why it didn't replace Nick at Night, I have no effing clue. Because Nick at Night is a goddamn graveyard where is happening, and like apparently they cut down shows to just get more like commercial time late at night.
Oh yeah.
Even like it's ridiculous. Like Nick and More has covered that. But goddamn like annoying. Like Nick at Night, like they maybe gotten like 2-3 new shows on that block in like the past decade that they're worth watching, and they're older shows. Like they run through themselves in a month. And then Nick Splat's on a satellite network where like almost nobody can see it, and they're trying to do like new innovative things, and it's like who the hell sees it?
Yep.
It's like it's ridiculous.
Yep. I mean, I remember the 90s or all that was funny because it was such a great idea, but it was like what, 4 hours from midnight to 4 a.m. Like, gee, thanks. And they like repeated episodes twice.
Cyma not liking Nick Splat just doesn't shock me because, like, in my opinion, for how long Cyma was with the network, it almost seems like she loathed what made it popular and wanted to make her own version of Nickelodeon popular, and it never, ever could reach that peak with her business practices. It did feel like jealousy that I hated is coming back, like the Splat, because she also changed the Nickelodeon logo. She's the reason that the Splat didn't happen.
Huh.
The splat. She cleaned up the splat because apparently she wanted the logo to look cleaner, which just made it look dull and lifeless. And the splat kind of brought it back what people liked about Nickelodeon.
Mhm.
And then the revivals started to happen, which, I know some people are like, well, we need more new content instead of relying on the old. But what some people don't understand is there were so many shows at Nickelodeon that didn't get a proper ending. These revivals are sorely needed
Yeah.
to like give closure to these shows, if anything, especially like Hey Arnold and shit
Mm.
for decades and didn't have closure, and they finally got it. Like, and that's Cyma's fault. Like, it happened under Cyma's watch. Like,
I mean, let's not forget, not to drudge up what I've spoken about like, oh, say 10 years ago, but just shows that got episodes that aired out of order, like Jimmy Neutron's finale didn't air as its finale for just no real reason. Um, The X's, that was a show that existed
yeah,
for all of like what, 1 year. They had this big promotion for it and just disappeared. I'm not saying it was a great, fantastic show, but like they didn't give it a chance. El Tigre had a great premise, and Nickelodeon just did not care.
like at least it wasn't Rugrats preschool days, which lasted like almost 6 days on the air because it
I,
was so bad.
I think that lasted like a negative amount of days. Um,
I literally thought I fever dreamed that shit, and then I was like, oh no, I did. This actually happened. Why did it happen? But yeah, I mean, the Micah posts were not only incredible to get out there, but just to like see how much like stuff you were saying 10 years ago, exactly what you were saying. I've been saying for 5 years, half the time, but I was agreeing with the sentiments. Like,
yeah, it's not like we didn't necessarily believe this, because of course if we were saying it, we believed it. It's just like to A, actually get confirmation, and to B, have it be like pretty much exactly spot on. It's just kind of mind blowing.
and this is why I don't rule anything out. I don't rule anything out when it comes to networks and like why things happen because the Nickelodeon stuff happening the way it did. To just think that Simon Zargami was that evil of a person, and so many people got screwed over due to her. Not that, and we only like scratched the surface of how many like the shows that got mistreated under her watch.
Hmm.
There are so many, like a rap sheet long. And like, I didn't even mention Making Fiends, where they promised the girl 20 episodes and only only aired 6, and then took the rights away, so she can't even make the comic anymore. Like, that is
Yeah.
garbage. Like, it is so evil what they do.
And of course, I mean,
And
like, I think we just touched on it,
they
but
like sit on these pilots. Like, yeah.
Micah's story, um, he says that basically just he wanted his project back if Nickelodeon wasn't going to move forward with it, for ridiculous reasons, of course. I mean, look, the 9/11, just like the very sensitivity right after the event is understandable, and to be fair, the pilot does include like a near miss of two towers, but that doesn't mean that the show couldn't have been greenlit, or at least postponed even. I mean, air it a year or two
Yeah, you
later.
can't,
Um, but basically after Nickelodeon decided, well, we don't want this, which, okay, they don't have to take it. Look at like what their terms were. Their terms were he'd have to pay $300,000 for the pilot and 50% of his salary forever. $300 lump sum and 50%. He's not buying back the pilot. He is literally giving them a chunk of everything for what? They helped him produce the pilot, okay, so that entitles them to something, okay, whatever. If he has to buy his rights back, that's one thing, but to put such a ridiculous price on it and go for a chunk of his salary, it's pathetic.
I will say, to be a slight devil's advocate,
Mm,
Disney Channel does do that with their pilots as well, because
mhm,
Jahonen explained it on Tumblr. Like, if he wanted a very important house
mhm.
session, a pilot that he produced for Disney and they have yet to release, he would have to pay like, I don't know, $100,000, which is still less than what Micah would have had to pay. But shows do this because they value their products to be something that just something that other companies would want and would want to greenlight and like make millions on possibly.
Right, right. And of course, I mean they helped produce it, so it's fair to ask him to buy it back. I think that. It's just not, I mean, the price is high, but okay, whatever. Maybe even that price is good because maybe the show is just really that good. But 50% of his salary forever is insane. That's not asking for a percentage of the toy rights. That's 50% of his salary.
And that's already asking for $300,000. It's like that. It's just a hate crime after that.
And this is he says 3 years ago from what? Today the 2018. So we're talking like, somewhere in 2015, 15 years after the pilot was not picked up. That long? I mean,
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah. At this point, like the most like hardcore animation fans would even know what constant pain is,
Yeah, and
and
it's
probably only because Rebel Taxi talked about it in a video. You know what I mean?
hmm it's a real crime too because the show looks like it would fit in exactly with Cartoon Network's lineup in like the mid 2000s. It looks like the sort of show that would run alongside like Teen Titans, or even like late 2000s with
It
like
looks very like Kim Possibly or like
Yeah.
Secret Saturdaysy. Like, see, like I kind of hope he can get the rights back because I think Netflix would love a show like that.
To also play devil's advocate, I mean, I guess he could
Mm-hmm.
just change enough about it. Like, there's no reason why he can't still do a steampunk show with characters. But
But when you have when you're so dedicated to a certain vision, sometimes it can be really hard. And
mm,
at that point, it was the principle of the thing. Like
of
they were
course,
really trying to screw with his like whole life.
and of course, like Nickelodeon could still be petty and sue, or something. But it does seem like it's probably an extreme overreaction to the Adventure Time thing, which is Nickelodeon's
Mhm.
own dang fault.
Yeah, it is their fault. They chose Fanboy and Chum Chum. I don't know what they saw in it. I will say, Katie Rice, who I've gotten to know, who does the comic Camp We Don't Want You,
Mhm.
she boarded on Fanboy and Chum Chum. And the boards actually look really nice, which actually makes me think that that show would have been a 2D show. It might not have been great, but it would have looked better.
Mhm.
I think that show's immediate downfall was it looked terrible in 3D. It looked absolutely horrific in 3D,
Hmm.
and it killed it right off the bat. But in Fanboy and Chum Chum, I just could never see it. And in Adventure Time, there was even from the first episode where they really didn't have that much of like a coherent storyline. I could see like, man, there's a lot of value here. There's a lot of like intrigue, and there's a world we can explore here. There's characters that are interesting.
It wasn't even
Well, like,
the Adventure Time that was season one. I know this because I literally just watched it yesterday, but it's not even that. I don't think Adventure Time on Nickelodeon would have been what it is today. But
and everybody said that.
the possibility just for fun and zaniness. It doesn't have to be like it would have been this story driven show, but just how funny and different Adventure Time was could have been a huge get for Nickelodeon. Adventure Time in its original form, at least in the pilot, looked like it could have run right alongside SpongeBob. It even has Tom Kenny. They could have very easily
Mhm.
have done this like beautiful double marketing of them back to back. Sorry, I went off on a tangent there.
I mean, no, I mean like Nickelodeon could have been like back in that time frame. Adventure Time could have been, I think, pretty good, but I do think that it being rejected made it in the long run a better show and
Oh
better
yeah.
off. But it doesn't make like the decision any better.
No.
Nickelodeon looked like shit, and it ruined their animation. It still kind of ruined their animation pipeline, rejecting it like they did.
Yep, and it saved
But
Cartoon
it was
Network. So,
just wow, they're in trouble again.
do you have anything else to say on the whole thing?
Yeah, I will say that how badly Micah was treated. It's not like he's been living like in a box Squidward style asking for change. He actually, I think, wrote for video game Skullgirls and the comic.
Hmm.
I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Skullgirls, but I watch two best friends play and they talk about it all the time. So I've had to residually hear about it.
Sounds like something Pan would be interested in.
Think he is. I would not put it. I would be shocked if he wasn't into Skullgirls. At the very least, he has been finding like work. Like despite being blacklisted, it hasn't all been bleak, and now with Cyma being fired, hopefully he and like whitewashed can find their way back into the industry, maybe work on the projects that were lost, and just find like and like because like even my anonymous sources have said like with Cyma being gone, there's a good chance that not only would I be back in Nickelodeon, but other people would be back in Nickelodeon. And I'm really hoping that they can get back in there and help out like the internal, like the animation side, like the and even the business side, like if possible. I'm really hoping that this is well the rise and fall of Nickelodeon because it's long overdue. We've suffered enough under Cyma's shit, and so many others have suffered even more. So
It's gonna have to be, or
like
otherwise
you know,
Nickelodeon will have
here's
to
hoping.
do a full rebrand. I think honestly, if they don't pick up their pieces, because the name Nickelodeon won't really mean anything if they don't have any good content in a year or two's time.
Are in dire crunch time. They need stuff to happen within the next like it's or it's going to go under.
Yep.
Like Nickelodeon won't be Nickelodeon anymore. They're
They
gonna have to like merge with a company to stay alive or something.
they need a new direction for live action since Schneider isn't going to be there, and I don't think copying his formula is really
Told
going to
you
work.
I told you in the call too that Star Falls was one of Nickelodeon's like newest live action shows, and they sent it to on demand within the span of a month. They, like literally have no direction for that right
So
now.
somehow I don't think telenovelas are going to save them.
Yeah, I don't. Hunter Street was actually a decent hit for them. I don't know if they're going to revive it for a third season or not, though.
Mm.
Like people were actually liking that because it was a little bit different. I guess because it was co-produced by like a Netherlands team. It was something. Like it wasn't like anything spectacular, but God, it was different.
Mm.
And God knows Nickelodeon needs like different live action. I did hear they're rebooting. I don't know if you heard about this, but Clarissa Explains It All is getting a revival.
I did hear that. That sounds. Eh.
I mean, that's gonna be something.
Yes, it will
Um,
be a thing that exists. I agree.
I think Are You Afraid of the Dark is also getting like a special at least within the next like 2 years.
Okay, I could dig it.
Something else. I Double Dare is back. I don't know if you consider that live action.
I mean, like that's all cool. Like I'm not dissing that, but that's not a direction for the network to take. That's a direction backwards. Um, without original content. Yeah, without original content to go along with it, you can only have so many TV movies of your old shows. Like, um,
Told you something you didn't know in the chat, which was Norman Lear, a 95-year-old
classic television
making
writer.
a is making a hip hop kids show animated for Nickelodeon now. Maybe that's like Cyma's last act.
Oh God.
5-year-old man to make an animated show and then just jump off the ship. For all I know, this could be amazing, but just hearing that as a title makes you like stare off into space.
Untitled hip hop project.
Literally, it's like, what?
uh, um,
I literally hope it's just Class of 3000. It's nothing's even changed about it. It's just like, here's my show, and it's Class of
no,
3000.
it's gonna be Rocket Power.
Oh, God. I mean, I will say I was one of the people who never like I never like condemned Rocket Power. I thought it was okay. It has not aged well. It's I never like thought it was like one of the worst things of all time.
Hmm.
Like some people like
I, I
really hate that show,
I
but
agree. I mean, I'm in the same boat. But anyway,
yeah,
the last things that I really have to say are just and you touched on this in one of your tweets. Is just that this is not the time to be like, ah, man, I'm on Cartoon Network side. Good thing they don't have this stuff going on because they probably do. I mean, you know, we've seen bits and
they
pieces of this.
probably do.
Yeah, like
Yeah, like the
Maybe.
Cartoon Network. It's hard to be on a side that's like still airing Teen Titans Go nonstop, and like
Hmm.
their their new shows aren't exactly lighting the world on fire either. Like there's a lot of question marks over there.
Yeah, and where's that Adventure Time finale, huh? What are you doing with it, Cartoon Network? Is it hiding with the other Steven Universe episodes?
Tweeted that somebody who worked on the staff actually all said like none of the people on staff even know when they're releasing it.
Of course, of course. Yes, I'm so excited for them to release it like months after the previous episode, so by then no one cares anymore. That's just great.
Oh, there were supposed to be like they were going to show the whole saga of Adventure Time from start to finish for like 2 months straight on the
Really?
network, and they got like they started airing it in order
Oh.
like daily, and then they like mid season one they stopped something else, and they never went back to it.
Yeah,
So
that's nuts. Um, and yeah,
it
and
doesn't shock me because like one of the problems that they said that Cyma had was her airing schedule was terrible. She would change stuff days in like 2 days in advance. It would screw up DVRs, and marketing like couldn't do a thing about it. And Cartoon Network is doing the same thing.
yep.
They change stuff like a day in advance. It screws up DVRs. It doesn't record right. So it's there's some eerily similar shit going on, and it makes me not trust CN.
Yeah, and I don't want to say anything because until we know things for certain, we know things for certain. Obviously they have not treated their shows correctly, and presumably the people who make those shows. But you
Oh,
know,
I mean, like I've talked to interns who have said that there's a huge disconnect between the animation studio and the executives at Cartoon Network. I don't know if it's as big as the disconnect that Sima's had,
mhm.
but like when nobody knows when their shows are being released, and like episodes will sit in a stack, and like they won't know when they're being aired, like stuff like that.
Yeah. So unfortunately, this stuff is rampant in the industry, and the only way to squash it out is by letting this stuff come to light. People will hear about it. People who want to make shows will hear about it, and not go to traditional networks. They'll go to Netflix. They'll go to Hulu. They'll go to Amazon. They'll make their own. On YouTube. Like until this stuff gets sorted out, and I don't know that it ever will. But and at least it gives people a warning that if they want to work at these networks, this is what you can expect. This stuff can and will happen to you, and it sucks. And
It's not a scare tactic. It's just like until it can get better, this is the kind of shit that people will have to deal with in the industry. And that's why, as you said, so many people are going to Netflix or going to Amazon or going to Hulu, YouTube, or their own avenues like Kickstarter and like GoFundMe, funding their own projects through
mm-hmm.
crowdsourcing. Things so much easier. And until these networks start balking, like they're going to continue to be in trouble.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is this is the last thing Nickelodeon needs, and I'm just so glad it's coming out. I'd love
You're
to.
welcome.
Thank you. I mean, I hope that anyone, if anyone hears this that did work on any of these shows and has anything to share, share it. I mean, obviously protect your career.
Share it anonymously. Like,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
you can private message us and we will get it out there. We won't tell people who you are. We'll just say like the information told to us.
There's a lot of
Like
people that
they're,
work on shows. Even if you say you worked on Harvey Beaks, there's, that doesn't mean anything. That could be an intern. That could be whatever. Just share these stories if you want this sort of thing to end.
yeah, I completely agree. Whether it's to me, to Pie Guy, to both of us, to anybody,
Yep.
word out there. And as you've seen on my example, like it it will blow up.
Yeah. People want to know this stuff. People side with creators a lot more than they're gonna side with soulless executives. If I know my narratives.
Mm-hmm.
um,
So thankful that it went viral because when I posted, I'm like, I really, really need this one to blow up because it's so important and so many people who have been like wronged by this company, and I'm so happy that it did, and I'm so happy I could be on here to talk about it.
mhm.
my offer to be on the Pizza Party podcast still stands, Rebel.
Mine doesn't. You can't have me. Sorry. um, please support Rise and Fall of Nick at Rise Fall Nick, and you have a Facebook page as well, I believe.
Yes, my Facebook is the Rise and Fall of Nickelodeon. It should just be the first thing that pops up in a Google search. I have a Patreon if you want to support it. Your any support helps this keep happening.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely gives me more incentive. Anything you'd like to do to help me, and giving me news like some of my friends do. Like, I'm not like an all-seeing eye. Like, people report this stuff to me, and I wouldn't be anywhere without them too, helping me out and getting it to the masses and trusting me with the news. It means so much to me.
Yeah. All those links will be in the description, by the way.
Thought that I would become the actual thing I hated, Nick News, without Linda Ellerby.
Oh man. All right. Well, thank you all for watching. If
Hit on that.
Yeah.
Hit on that terrible joke.
If you're new to the channel, I have some other videos if you want to check them out. Subscribe. Click the bell. I hate saying it, but I might as well. But yeah, thank you very much. All right. Bye, Guy Rules. Out.